What is going on, everyone? Happy Monday. I realize I did not do, for the first time in a long time, I did not do a Jake and Friends last Monday. You know, I had life, I had work, I had other stuff that came up. So I've got a new angle here. You all have to let me know what you think of the new angle here. We're working on some different setups in the home office. So I'm kind of liking it. Feels a little dark, but it's all good. So today I've got a good buddy of mine, Chris Walker, is joining me. We're going to be talking about marketing and sales and talking a little bit about intent. And I think this is one of those topics that we've been talking about intent for quite some time. What's going on, Mr. Sharma? Hope you're doing amazing. Good morning. We've been talking about intent for a long time. I mean, a lot of the companies that are in the intent business have been doing this for a long time. And so when I think about intent and I think about it, it's not a matter of like, is intent going to be a thing? The answer is like emphatic yes, right? There's no doubt at all that intent will be a thing. But is it a thing now? And I think that's what, I hit up Chris and, kind of asked him to join me. So I'm going to bring up my friend here. What's going on, Keith? That is amazing. I love that. Thank you for joining, Keith. Appreciate that, man. That's helpful to know. All right, Chris, here we go.
Jake, what's up, man? Good to see you.
What's up, man? How are you?
Positioned. I like the new setup. It looks great.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like we completely redid the home office, like a lot of people, right? And then like this little part was it's kind of like in the background. I'm like, I think that would be like a better spot, maybe. I need to get, I think, maybe like an extra light. Maybe I've got like the bright light right here, but once I get that, Becca likes the really big chair. Yeah, so we'll see how this goes too. It does feel weird. I'm sitting much lower than I'm used to, and so it doesn't feel as like, I feel like when you like sit up straight and you have good posture, you feel more kind of confident and authoritative. But I don't know. I'm gonna give it a shot. It feels much. I tell you what, it's pretty relaxing. At a minimum here. So all right, man. Well, look, hey, I'm looking forward to Friday where we're gonna hang out in person.
Oh yeah,
coming down to Austin, man. Well, we're looking forward to it. We'll see you here. So look, man, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about intent. So we had this kind of scheduled a little bit ago, and I said, who's a marketing person that I can hit up, who I know will have an opinion on this, and I thought about you. So, I thought, hey, we could kind of spend 30 minutes just talking to people about kind of where intent is now, where we feel intent is best used versus maybe kind of how it's being, I don't know, positioned. And again, there's different types of, what do you call it? There's different types of, intent data that we can kind of get into some of that as well too. But I definitely talk a lot about third-party intent data in particular and keyword-based intent data from third parties, because I feel like that's kind of the, I don't say call it most common, but I think that is kind of like one of the genesis of that. And basically where this spawned, Chris, is we just launched on the website, and Becca will drop a link real quick, our buyer trends, which is basically where we go out and interview different people in the C-suite. And we interviewed marketing execs, people that are running, $10, $20 million budgets. And this intent topic came up like at least twice, like at least in like 2 or 3 of the ones that I did the interview for. And so I know it's a hot button for marketers in particular. And I certainly for sales organizations that are trying to get smarter about where they target. So I want to toss it to you, man. How do you, obviously it's a performance agency, and I know you're, always want to be tied to revenue. How do you think about intent data? How are you using it or thinking about it? What's your take as someone who's, managing quite a bit of spend for different companies?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm always happy to join Jake for these talks. It's awesome. For anyone that doesn't know me, we currently execute demand and ABM programs for more than 40 enterprise SaaS organizations. So we get a lot of insights about what companies are doing, how they're using intent data. We have worked with most of the providers. We've deployed campaigns off of them. We see the analytics data all the way to revenue. We see the outbound success rates. So we have a pretty good sense about what's going on here. The first thing that I want to back people up on is people think that intent, the only way to get intent is to get intent data, and that's not true. And so there's actually 3 core levels of intent that I see. And so the bottom one is going to be low or no intent. So define that as there's no data that suggests that anyone at this company or this person has intent. So things like content syndication, download, a lot of the low, cheap, low intent leads will fall into that category where you're literally just looking for an email address or a phone number to cold call someone that doesn't want to buy. That's level one. You got
Chris, real quick before you go to level two, because I think I want to be clear for a lot of people. Some of these things might look like a content download. Now, would that be a level one for you, like in terms of what you see, like an initial ebook download or sign up for a newsletter? Like, would you put that at that level one, or does that go into what you're getting ready to get into?
No, that's level one. Those go into level one. The win rates of those leads will be about 0.1%. So if you want your sales team following up with 1,000 people to win one deal, then be my guest. But that's not what I want to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, the reason I call that out, man, is that I talk to a lot of companies, and when marketing is, incentivized on MQLs, right? Or MQLs or whatever acronym
even SQL, you can get there with this method.
Yeah, but they count that. They think that a webinar attendee or something one time is and so I think it's just important for all of you out there, if you're in sales and marketing, especially in leadership, to listen to what Chris is saying. This guy has, the data to back it up, that it's not about the first touch point. And then, I'll let you get into it, but I just thought it was really important to kind of double click on that for everyone.
Yeah, and the as we move up the scale, the win rates for your sales team are going to get higher and higher. So you can go into your own data, you can pull this, you can say, okay, look at all my newsletter signups that we did outbound to. Let me look at all, and we'll go through that. But the levels are purely driven through conversion rates to customer. That's the only place that then using some level of common sense to understand, okay, these all fit into the same category, and then categorizing them. So level one, we just went through it, no intent, like content downloads, third party, like content syndication, gated would fall into that too. Or you just pull someone out of Zoom Info and you cold call them, that would fall into that category as well. So level two is what I would call assumed or anonymous intent. So this is where third party intent data is going to come in. And so given that, like, I call it assumed and anonymous because it's typically not driven through a actual person, it's an account. And you are assuming, based on whatever filters you put in place and whatever data source, that those people actually have intent, but they haven't told you that. And so that will be level two. And then you want to ask some questions? You want to just go?
Yeah, no, I do want to ask. I do. You already knew it. Now you knew it. And so, when you think about that type of data, because that's the data in particular, Chris, that I feel is maybe being over-indexed against, which is that it's being what I'm seeing from time to time as I see, well, look, some data is better than no data. So don't get me wrong. I'm not bashing that type of data.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I have seen, though, that is kind of scary for me is people are using that data and determining pretty much their entire account-based strategy based solely off of that type of intent data. And to me, like you said, somewhat anonymous. And I did a post about this yesterday. Someone who works for one of these companies, he was not happy with me. Christopher Rack is his name. And he's like, you experts, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, look, if an intern at IBM in the marketing department goes and looks at a piece of content, and then a marketing manager in a different market goes and looks at with the same keywords, some third-party intent might go like, oh, IBM's marketing department is in the market for XYZ.io. And it's like, no, like it's maybe it's a signal. And I feel like it's kind of like very polarizing. It's like people are either like all in that this is the holy grail, or they're like complete skeptic and like it's not. And so what's the middle ground? Like how do you think that data is best utilized?
So first off, we went through the scale, right? So if you're just pulling people out of Zoom Info, hopefully this level that you're getting out of assumed or anonymous intent is marginally better, at least. So like that's the step. And then I want to get to the last one, just center it, and then we can get into like more focus on intent data. The top level is what I call declared intent. A person at a qualified account comes in and says to you, first party, hey, I want to talk to your sales rep about buying stuff. And those are going to have the best win rates. That's the only real intent data that I care about, although our customers use a lot of intent data. But I'm looking at generating first-party intent where people want to buy. It completely changes your marketing strategy. And so while everyone else is focused on trying to like go and get signals and hope that that account has intent, I'm way more focused on going out and marketing to accounts so that they actually have it and they tell me that they want to buy.
Yeah, well, okay, let's talk about that then. And then where would you actually before that I go to question, where would you put something? Because I think that there is a new type of intent that maybe fits in between your kind of tier 1 and tier 2, or your top tier and your tier 2, which is like comparative data. So someone has went to, let's say, a site like G2 or something like that, and they've kind of teed up, like, hey, I literally clicked on you and 3 other people. Would you put that in still like a different bucket?
Still an anonymous assumed. It fits the definition and the win rates will be similar. So I believe it belongs in there. So when I'm talking about anonymous assumed intent, third party can come from review sites, can come from intent data providers like Bambora that aggregate data from web and search queries. So like that's what I'm talking about here.
Okay. All right. So yeah, still you've seen that. And then I guess it becomes a top tier whenever then you see the person does a comparison and they then say, hey, I want to talk to you about XYZ. And
yeah, frankly, I don't even care if they went to did a comparison. Like my actual objective as a vendor would be that they don't make the comparison because they want to buy me.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it for sure.
Yeah, so when you're in the review site category and you get data that some accounts on there that they haven't come to you yet, like I believe that you're way too late in that process. You haven't been marketing early enough in the process for them to go and do that. Like you should win before someone gets to Google, before someone gets to a review site. Like I want someone to go to a review site to validate that they want to buy us because we have a bunch of reviews, not to decide which vendor to buy from. And so what I see right now is I see that most marketing and sales efforts, especially the ones that you're talking about that leverage intent data, they start marketing and sales way too late. And so once people are up here in social, podcasts, communities, all these places where marketers don't market because they're waiting for intent, executives are setting business priorities. They're consuming content. They're learning. They're talking with their peers about what products and things that they're using. They're trying to identify new problems or opportunities to solve. They're going through next year's planning. They're doing it up there with no intent. They decide all of their plans. They decide what technology is going to be involved. They decide what strategies they're going to use. And then they go into intent channels where all of the vendors wait. And I believe that you're too late. People have already decided what vendor to use. They've spec'd in important features of the product that yours doesn't have. And now you're just cold calling accounts, hoping that you can slide into a couple deals. And I just think it's, you're gonna have a couple success stories there, but it's not gonna change the trajectory of your business, in my view.
Yeah. So how do you get to that level? So Gartner says by the end of 2022, 70% of B2B marketers will utilize third-party intent data to target prospects or engage groups of buyers. Which is a lot, right? And I think again, and maybe do you see that just basically us moving away from those tier 1 and just tier 2, although it's not the no intent. Is it just that like it's just a better way to do that? It's still not great. Is that where you see it, or how do you see it, or maybe it's again maybe how do you see it impacting that top group, that of people ready to buy? Or wanting to talk to.
I think Gartner also reported that about 92% of B2B companies will have an ABM strategy at some point. So there's some stats going out there that are technology and vendor centric, but anyway, because not 92% of companies shouldn't have an ABM strategy, but Gartner's reporting that. So anyway, I don't take those stats into much of account. I do see that a lot of people are adopting these things, and I do believe that it is a replacement to the bottom thing that I mentioned. So low, no intent is what most companies were doing. Let's get rid of that. Let's move into intent. It's going to work better than pulling people out of Zoom Info, just like companies were running lead gen or poorly targeted marketing, and then ABM was in there. So it's just going from something that was bad to something that's slightly better.
Slightly, but I also worry that it could be slightly better, or it could be directionally off. Right. And then you're wasting a lot of time and effort. But I guess the point is, right, you'd be wasting that time and effort regardless on IBM or whoever it is.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully you have your account list set and then you can use that data and you can just prioritize outbound in a slightly better way than just randomly guessing. So I see how it works. To be honest, I see because we've tested a lot of this in marketing, like the use cases that you mentioned, waiting for intent data to deploy ads and different things like that. And by and large, it's just not a very effective strategy. Not something I'm going to get behind and say everyone should go and do that. We've tested G2, Trust Radius, Bambora, Sixth Sense, several other providers, and haven't had really strong results there. But on the sales side, I do think that there's a big benefit, and the benefits are twofold. One, like instead of just pulling people out of a contact database and calling them, or content downloads or things like that, your sales team is prospecting to something a little bit better. But there's a nuance here that I don't think most people understand, is that when you give your sales team a different source of information to do outbound, that your marketing team can start doing real marketing instead of collecting email addresses and phone numbers. And so the number one use case that I see for intent data is giving sales a different mechanism to trigger outbound, because that's all content downloads are.
Yep.
So that marketing can go out and create demand, can win in these channels that actually matter, while sales outbound gets marginally better as well. Like those are the things that that's my take on where we are right now. Do I see it potentially evolving? Sure. Like I think it has opportunities to evolve, but the places where you and I market, Jake, and where a lot of people understand, like those places are never going to give you intent data, and that's where all the value is. So certain websites are just different, like review sites, search engines, blogs are in the business of taking that data and trying to make money off of it. And places like LinkedIn or Apple or Instagram are not. And so they're never going to give you that data.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that top tier of intent, which is this like qualified, I want
Declared.
to declared, declare, I have said, I want. So when you think about, again, we're talking about intent data to some extent here, but and you talked about the sites that you would want to know more data from being more difficult. So how do you think about driving to declared? When you think about an integrated approach here, what are some of the and again, you have kind of this focus on the B2B SaaS, and you see a lot of these angles. What do you feel are like the top most important variables then to get that type of interest?
Yeah. So when you look at declared intent, I'll just kind of clarify a little bit deeper here. It's somebody telling your business that they're interested in buying from you directly. And so the simplest conversion for software would be like, hey, somebody qualified comes and asks for a demo.
Yeah.
But some really interesting things are happening right now. $20 billion revenue organization CMO Instagram DM'd me last weekend and said, hey, can we set up a meeting to start working together? Got an email from a publicly traded medical device company. Actually, it wasn't an email. It was a Twitter DM asking, hey, I'm interested in working with you. That happened about 2 hours ago. Those are declared intent as well. I actually think those are higher intent than coming through a website, direct message to somebody. So if you're a sales rep, like getting someone to come to you and say, hey, I would love to talk to you about solving this business problem that I have because you put out great content and I trust you. Like that's what you want to get to. And so whether it comes to the website and scale or whether it comes through DMs, it doesn't matter, but it's somebody saying, hey, I want to buy from you, and they know a lot about what you're up to. And so when you think about how to drive that, it comes down to just core marketing principles here. Figure out where people are spending their time, figure out what they care about, put information on the internet that's the best for what they're trying to do, make sure that they can take stuff away and implement it in their business and have success without purchasing your stuff. It's pretty simple. Like it's pretty simple. It starts with a commitment. It starts with a changing of the measurement, then a commitment to the strategy and a big level of customer focus.
And then how do you balance that? I mean, look, I think that I espouse
on the same page here.
These strategies. My question though is for a lot of people listening, it kind of is going, I don't want to say against the grain, but maybe against the grain, which is to say, well, because again, like tracking an Instagram DM or a Twitter DM, it's not as easy to track, right? You got to go manually move it over or something. So how do you rectify these two? Where we want to have more data to make better informed decision making, but many of the activities that actually get more people to the declared, the one-to-one correlation or indirect correlation isn't there. And so for how do you talk to marketers or to teams that struggle with that gap?
I tell marketers that they've been under an illusion that there's straight line attribution and it should work like some mathematical equation, which is totally not true. And so they've been under an illusion for the past 10 years, started with marketing automation vendors and poured on by other marketing technology vendors that everything can be measured. You should have direct ROI on everything, which ultimately creates an illusion. It also creates really poor marketing behavior and I believe really suboptimal decision-making in terms of strategy. And so the first step that you need to take is acknowledge that we're in a different world here. Buyers are in a completely different place than in 2011. They are on multiple devices. We're in a mobile device world. We're in third-party platforms that are not incentivizing to give you that data, where they consume content, where they learn. They do a lot of it on their own. There's a ton of things that are not being tracked. And so you as a marketer need to figure out how to evolve. The way that I've evolved over the past 5 years in my career is that I lean way more into qualitative insights than quantitative. I look at who's sending me the messages. I'm looking at what questions people are asking me on my live event. I'm looking at who's commenting. What are they saying on my posts? I'm looking at who's sending me an email saying they listened to that podcast. I'm listening to what people that are prospect or that are potential customers are saying to me on our first call. What are the questions? What are they saying? Oh, first call starts. I've been listening to your podcast for 3 months. It's been awesome. And so that's all the data that I need. And so it's way different as I don't know, someone who's focused on the outcome results. And it's weird to think that most marketers, I believe, I don't know if most, but I believe that a lot of marketers fall into a camp right now where measuring stuff has become more important than actual outcomes.
I think it goes to comp, right? It goes to comp. If you're compensated on a very loose definition of something that's so far up funnel that it doesn't matter, then that to me is the issue, right? Like the issue is a lot of this ties to compensation, and people do what you compensate them, to do to some extent. And until there's this shift around tying it and everyone being comfortable, and there's no more finger pointing sales, to marketing and marketing to sales. I think companies will get left behind because they continue to compensate ways that you used to compensate 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, whether it's compensation driven or it's purely just their KPIs, right? A lot of marketers aren't on a variable comp package, but have KPIs around what I would consider vanity metrics that are early funnel that don't map to sales outcomes, but they map them that way because they're easy to measure, they're easy to control, and you can move them within the next 3 hours if you wanted to. And that's just not metrics that you can move in 3 hours are not metrics that matter to your sales team.
But that part of that's a symptom of like we're just focused on the now. We're not thinking about that I call it like the mid to long game, which is the things that we're talking about. The snowball effect of, there's a lot of there's Gong and there's some other B2B brands that have just figured out that this is not really rocket science. The more that you educate, the more that you put things out, and you empower your people to do it. I've talked about this before. Like LinkedIn is a platform. SAP posted about 40 times last month. SAP employees posted 11,000 SAP employees posted. That doesn't even count if they posted twice. And so I really feel like in the sales world, on the sales side of it, the opportunity, because again, when people look at you and I, they're like, yeah, of course, these guys run their own company. They have time to do podcasts and things like that. And when I talk to sales reps, I'm like, how do you not make this a priority? How do you not, again, you talk about, what your territory is, you know who your audience is. Why wouldn't you be connecting with more people? Why wouldn't you be wanting to, I call LinkedIn like a 5-minute speaking spot you can have every day to your target audience. Why wouldn't you, you'd fly to Florida to go speak at an event in front of 40 of these people. Why wouldn't you post about it or put out content or thought leadership for these individuals? And so I think for a lot of people, and Jared J posted on here, it's just like super frustrating, like the company's not getting this about, that. But I think there's just as much a problem on the sales side for outbound activities, right? Outbound. And I talk to people about
straight measurable, has to be direct, like
has to be direct. And it used to be that way though.
To Jared's comment, we have about probably 60% of our employees, more than 35 people, probably post on LinkedIn at least weekly. and their posts are making impact to our business, but not being measured. So then you have, like, let's say 100 sales reps at SAP. Let's keep it relatively complicated. Those people are all posting. The people that are coming inbound are not going to come direct to you. It's going to get territorialized. You don't incentivize people to do it. Just like the whole way it's set up has prevents this from happening.
Yeah, well, prevents, and there's still that kind of, sometimes marketing is a command and control versus say empower and enable. And I think that's a pretty big gap. And on the sales side, the thing is, it goes back to those metrics you talked about. And I like this, kind of the way that you put it, which is 15 years ago in the early 2000s, your people were only cold calling to set a meeting. Like that was kind of the median. And then email started to become, and so there was more of a one-to-one, right? Like most of the activities, like 80 to 90% of the activities were to set a meeting. Fast forward to today, you're asking your sales reps to be on LinkedIn. You're asking them to go do additional research or to send a video to warm someone up. And so again, it's like this archaic look at activity metrics for sales teams versus the first outcome, which we call meaningful conversation, which is like, I engaged with someone who said, hey, I'm going to put you in touch with this person. Or they said, hey, I can't meet now, but let's meet in like 3 weeks. So it's like moving toward this concept of the first outcome versus an activity. It used to be, like you said, it's actually interesting. It's the exact same thing for sales, where we have this funnel, X activities, and Aaron Ross, I love him. Like, he created this with predictable revenue. It was predictable revenue, right? You put this many activities in, and guess what? When he wrote that book, it was true. It's just not true today, and it's not, and that's not against him. So Chris, I know we're going to wrap up here in a sec, man. For people who are listening to this and they're trying to think about, let's wrap up on the intent side. What are the best ways to use intent data? And let's focus on, again, something like the third party intent data in particular. There's obviously a lot of other really great, what you could call intent data, but what do you feel is the best way for companies that are trying to think about this to utilize as a marketer third party intent?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to get to that in 1 sec. There's just one question from Jared I want to get in here. So Jared says, why would you need to track the declared intent if you can deliver a CMO through Instagram DM? They're sold. It's all about delivery after that. Jared, on that, it's not about the marketing for that specific content. It's about specific contact. It's about what you're optimizing for in your marketing mix. And so I'm optimizing for people to come in and say, hey, I would love to buy from you, which changes everything that I'm doing in marketing, as opposed to companies that are waiting on intent data and their main strategy starts when an account says they get some signal. And so when you think about the best use cases for intent data, I mentioned one already, giving your outbound team a different trigger than marketing MQLs or something. So which the main benefit in that one, I believe, is so that your marketing team can do real marketing, not contact user acquisition type of stuff. So that's a big one. On the marketing side, if you want to pull out intent data and you want to take those accounts and you want to target them on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn and run media to them, be my guest. It's not going to change the trajectory of your business. You might get some efficiencies there. So feel free to do that if you want. And then the number one thing, and the way that I believe, is if you can figure out how to create a system where you get predictable, growing, consistent people to declare intent, then your interest in intent data will go down.
Yeah. And if you can, and hypothetically, right, if you start these efforts, you should continue to see the intent go up, right? How you know that the intent data is bad for an account is that after your efforts, the intent, like, it should be signaling more and more versus less. So look, I hope this is helpful for a lot of folks out there. We're doing a webinar next Wednesday, with VP of Marketing at Vidyard, and just talking about, different details, like, Chris, talking about intent data and this idea of declaration and the things that you can do there. We're talking a lot about what are marketers buying right now? Like, what are marketers in the market for? There's, like you said, there's no shortage of tech. I don't know how many marketing technologists, like 6,000 maybe. I mean, there's a lot.
Over 8 now. Yeah,
8,000. So make sure to sign up for that. If you're somebody who sells into marketing in particular, or is just interested in, people like Chris and what other marketers are buying or interested in, it's a really, I think, unique opportunity to kind of get a peek behind the lens. And again, you hear people like Chris, who are a thought leader in marketing, and they're talking about, what's happening. And, these are the buyers, right? Chris and his clients are the people that are buying this stuff. So, make sure to tune in, check it out. We'd love to have all of you join next Wednesday afternoon. Becca will drop a link in there. So Chris, my man, I know you got to run. Appreciate you as always. You'll see on Friday.
Yeah. Can't wait.
Let me know what you're in the mood to do, man. We'll make it happen.
Thanks. I'll text you later. See you, everyone. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Let's see here. So again, I really hope that for a lot of you out there that this is like a really good, maybe it's an introduction to you, for you to intent data. And maybe it's something that you've thought about, or your company is already implementing. And I think hopefully, at least my takeaways from this are intent data is an arrow in your quiver. It is not a silver bullet. And what I feel like, and it is something though, right? And so I don't want it to come off as intent. Don't use intent data. Use intent data, but understand it's gonna maybe point you in the right direction sometimes, and it's also gonna not point you in the right direction sometimes. So I think the key is just to understand. Like I love how Chris put that, which is like no intent and up, kind of mixing some of additional information to where it's like, okay, these people are anonymous, but there might be something there. So again, like I said, I hope all of you had some strong takeaways from this, and definitely tag in your marketing team if this is something that you think your marketing team will find beneficial or helpful. Make sure you go follow Chris. Obviously, Chris knows what he's talking about, and it's why he and I get along so well. Is we both have opinions that might be a little contra. What is it? Not counterintuitive. I think they should be intuitive, but maybe controversial at times. But all right, everyone, have a great rest of your week. As usual, if you have any questions, you've got anything for me, you can always DM me on LinkedIn. I try to get back to everybody. Cyan, what's up, man? Good to see you. Jared, great to see you. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you next Monday on Jake and Friends. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.